You don't need another motivational video. You don't need another speech screaming, wake up at 5 a.m. or grind harder. You don't need temporary hype that fades the moment life gets uncomfortable. What you need is standards. Because motivation is emotional. Standards are structural. Motivation depends on how you feel. Standards define who you are. And the truth most people avoid is this. Your life right now is a reflection of what you are willing to tolerate. The money you accept, the disrespect you ignore, the laziness you excuse, the discipline you postpone. Every time you say it's okay to something that is below your potential, you lower your standards. And once your standards drop, your results follow. High performers don't wake up motivated every day. They wake up committed to a non-negotiable standard. A standard for how they train, a standard for how they think, a standard for how they show up when nobody is watching. That's why some people change their life permanently, while others keep restarting every Monday. Because motivation says, I'll start when I feel ready. Standards say, I don't negotiate with excuses. If your standard for fitness is, I go to the gym only when I feel like it, you'll always struggle. If your standard is, I train no matter what, your identity shifts. If your standard for respect is low, people will treat you accordingly. If your standard for success is average, your effort will be average. Standards create boundaries. Boundaries create discipline. Discipline creates results. And results build confidence. That's the chain reaction no one talks about. You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your standards. So stop asking, how can I stay motivated? Start asking, what do I no longer tolerate from myself? Do you tolerate procrastination? Do you tolerate weak effort? Do you tolerate distraction? Do you tolerate being average? The moment
Wow,
you
look at
raise your
this. This burger
standards,
is called my
certain
name,
habits become
but I should be good and
unacceptable.
pick the
Certain
salmon.
people lose access to you.
Wow, look
Certain
at this. This
excuses
burger is
die
called my
immediately.
name,
And
but I should
yes,
be good and
raising
pick the
your
salmon.
standards is uncomfortable.
Wow,
It
look at
demands
this. This burger is
sacrifice.
called my name,
It demands
but I should be good and
consistency.
pick the salmon.
It demands self-respect, but it also demands growth. The version of you that keeps waiting for motivation will stay stuck. The version of you that sets non-negotiable standards will evolve. So, if you truly want change, stop chasing emotional spikes. Build rules. Build discipline. Build identity. Because motivation comes and goes. Standards stay. And the day you decide that good enough is no longer acceptable is the day everything begins to shift. Most people believe their biggest problem is a lack of motivation. They think if they could just feel more inspired, more fired up, more emotionally charged, they would finally change their life. They wait for the perfect morning, the perfect speech, the perfect song, the perfect mood. But here is the uncomfortable truth. Motivation is unreliable. It rises and falls like the weather. Some days, you wake up ready to conquer the world. Other days, you can barely conquer your own thoughts. If your progress depends on emotion, your progress will always be inconsistent. And inconsistency is the silent killer of dreams. What you truly need is not another emotional spark. You need standards. Standards are different. Standards are decisions. Standards are non-negotiable rules you set for yourself about what you will and will not accept. Motivation says, I hope I feel like doing this today. Standards say, this is who I am. I do this regardless of how I feel. That single shift changes everything. Think about how many times you have said, I'll start tomorrow. Tomorrow becomes Monday. Monday becomes next month. Next month becomes next year. The cycle repeats. Not because you are incapable, but because you are waiting for a feeling. Feelings are temporary. Standards are permanent. When you set a standard, you remove the debate. There is no internal negotiation. There is no emotional voting system happening in your head every morning. You already decided, and that decision becomes part of your identity. The reason some people transform their bodies, build businesses, or master skills is not because they are always motivated. It is because they set a standard for themselves that quitting is not an option. Look at Kobe Bryant. People admire his talent, but what separated him was not motivation. It was a standard. He had a personal rule to train before everyone else and to outwork everyone in the gym. There were days he was tired, days he was injured, days he probably did not feel inspired, but his standard did not change with his mood. That is why he practiced at 4 a.m. That is why he repeated the same shots thousands of times. His identity was built around a non-negotiable level of effort. He didn't wake up asking, "Do I feel like being great today?" He woke up asking, "Does my work match my standard?" And if the answer was no, he corrected it. The same pattern appears in business. Consider Elon Musk. Whether someone agrees with him or not, his work ethic is undeniable. He has spoken openly about working extreme hours, sleeping in factories, pushing through intense pressure. That does not come from daily motivation. That comes from a personal standard for output and innovation. A standard that says mediocrity is unacceptable. When your standard demands excellence, your actions align with it automatically. When your standard allows comfort, your actions shrink to match that. Now bring this closer to home. Imagine two students preparing for exams. One studies only when he feels stressed or inspired. Some days he studies 6 hours. Other days he studies none. The second student sets a standard. 2 hours of focused study every day. No excuses. Over time, who wins? Not the one with emotional bursts. The one with consistent standards. That student may not feel extraordinary every day, but the daily discipline compounds. Small actions repeated under a fixed standard create massive long-term results. That is the quiet power most people underestimate. Your current life is a mirror of your standards. The respect you receive reflects what you tolerate. If someone repeatedly disrespects you and you allow it, your standard for treatment is low. If you consistently show up late and accept it as just who I am, your standard for discipline is low. If you skip workouts whenever you feel tired, your standard for health is flexible. And flexible standards create fragile results. This is not about shame, it is about awareness. Once you see that your results are tied to what you tolerate, you regain control. You stop blaming circumstances. You start adjusting standards. Standards shape identity. When you say, "I am someone who keeps promises to myself," that becomes a rule. You no longer break commitments easily because it would violate who you believe you are. Identity-based standards are powerful because they operate even when no one is watching. Think about a person who prides themselves on honesty, even in private. Even when lying would be easier, they feel internal resistance. Why? Because their standard for integrity is high. The same can apply to discipline, fitness, business, learning, or relationships. When your standard becomes part of your identity, your behavior follows automatically. Consider Cristiano Ronaldo. His longevity at the top level of football is not luck. It is the result of strict personal standards regarding diet, training, recovery, and focus. Many athletes are motivated at the beginning of their careers. Few maintain elite performance for decades. That longevity is built on daily standards that do not change based on mood. When you watch someone like him, you are not witnessing motivation. You are witnessing disciplined repetition rooted in a personal code. But standards are not only for celebrities. They are for the single mother who works 2 jobs yet still finds time to study at night because her standard is that her children will have a better future. She is not motivated every evening. She is exhausted. But her standard says quitting is not an option. They are for the employee who decides that average performance is unacceptable and begins delivering excellence consistently, even before receiving recognition. Eventually, promotions follow, not because of motivation, because of reliability. The challenge with raising your standards is discomfort. When you increase the minimum level you accept from yourself, life becomes harder before it becomes better. If your new standard is waking up at 5 a.m., the first weeks will test you. If your new standard is no junk food, your cravings will fight back. If your new standard is daily practice of a skill, boredom will whisper excuses. This is the moment most people retreat. They assume the discomfort means something is wrong. In reality, discomfort is proof that your old standards are being replaced. Standards remove emotional decision-making. Imagine you decide that missing a workout is not acceptable unless you are sick. Suddenly, There is no daily debate. You do not sit on your bed negotiating with yourself. The rule is set. This mental clarity saves energy. Decision fatigue disappears. The more standards you set in key areas, the fewer internal battles you fight. That mental space can be redirected toward creativity, growth, and focus. There is also a powerful psychological effect: self-respect. Every time you meet your own standard, you reinforce trust in yourself. You become someone who does what they say. Confidence is not built by positive affirmations alone. It is built by evidence. When you consistently honor your standards, you gather proof that you are disciplined, capable, and reliable. That internal proof strengthens you far more than temporary motivation ever could. At some point, you must ask yourself a difficult question. What do I tolerate from myself that I would never tolerate from others? Many people demand excellence from friends, employees, or partners, yet excuse their own procrastination and inconsistency. Raising your standards begins with personal accountability, not harsh self-criticism, but honest evaluation. If you say you want success yet repeatedly choose comfort, your standards and your goals are misaligned, and you will always fall to the level of your standards, not rise to the level of your dreams. Imagine deciding today that being average is no longer acceptable in one area of your life. Just one. Maybe it is your health. You create a clear rule: 30 minutes of movement daily. No excuses. You protect that standard like a contract. Weeks pass. Energy improves. Confidence grows. Discipline in health begins influencing other areas. Suddenly, your work ethic strengthens. Your sleep improves. Momentum builds. It started not with motivation, but with a non-negotiable standard. The same applies to relationships. If your standard becomes mutual respect, clear communication, and honesty, you will naturally distance yourself from people who violate that. Raising standards often means losing certain environments. That can feel lonely at first, but it creates space for better opportunities. High standards act like a filter. They repel what does not align and attract what does. There will always be days when motivation is absent, days when progress feels slow, days when you question your path. On those days, standards carry you. They act like rails guiding a train through fog. You may not see far ahead, but you stay on track because the structure is fixed. Over time, those consistent tracks lead you somewhere powerful. So instead of asking how to feel more motivated, ask yourself what your minimum acceptable effort is. Ask what behaviors are no longer allowed. Ask what version of yourself you refuse to return to. Set small, clear, non-negotiable rules. Protect them fiercely. Live by them quietly. You do not need to announce them to the world. You only need to honor them daily. One day, you will look back and realize the turning point was not a viral speech or a surge of inspiration. It was the moment you decided that certain behaviors were beneath you, that quitting was beneath you, that excuses were beneath you, that average effort was beneath you. You raised your standard, and when your standards rise, your life has no choice but to rise with them. Good. Now we go deeper, because understanding standards intellectually is one thing. Living by them is another. The real shift happens the moment you stop seeing standards as restrictions and start seeing them as protection. Protection of your future. Protection of your potential. Protection of your self-respect. Most people think freedom means doing whatever you feel like doing. But real freedom comes from discipline. When you have no standards, you become a slave to mood, distraction, and comfort. When you set standards, you become the architect of your direction. Look at the life of Steve Jobs. He was known for being extremely demanding, not just with others, but with himself. His standard for product design was so high that good was never enough. That relentless standard is why products were redesigned over and over until they felt revolutionary. It wasn't motivation driving that. It was intolerance for mediocrity. That intolerance is what separates ordinary output from extraordinary impact. Now bring this into your personal life. Imagine you decide that being late is no longer part of your identity. You set a standard. I arrived 10 minutes early. At first it feels small, but something subtle shifts. You start planning better. You start respecting your time. Others begin to notice your reliability.
You can't escape
Opportunities begin
this.
to trust
Let
you.
go! Not until
Not
you
because
yield.
gave
I
a
won't!
motivational
You
speech,
will.
but because your behavior became consistent. Standards compound. Every small promise kept builds internal strength. Every small compromise weakens it. Think about fitness again. Many people start strong in January. Gyms are full. Motivation is high. By March, most quit. Why? Because they relied on emotion. But the few who stay are not excited every day. They simply decided that training is part of who they are. It is a standard, like brushing teeth. No debate, no drama, just action. That is the power you are missing. When you rely on motivation, you are constantly negotiating with yourself. Maybe tomorrow. I'm tired. Just this once. But when you operate by standards, the negotiation ends. The decision was already made weeks ago, and here's the deeper truth. Your brain adapts to the minimum you allow. If your standard is 1 hour of focused work daily, your brain organizes around that. If your standard is endless scrolling and distraction, your brain organizes around that too. Neuroplasticity does not judge. It responds to repetition. Standards control repetition. Repetition builds identity. Look at Michael Jordan. He was cut from his high school varsity team. Many people use rejection as a reason to quit. He used it to raise his standard. Stories from teammates describe how he practiced with intensity even during off-season. That wasn't because he woke up inspired every single morning. It was because he decided average effort was unacceptable. His standard forced growth. Here's something powerful. Standards create emotional stability. When you don't rely on feelings, you stop riding emotional roller coasters. You don't need to feel confident to act confidently. You don't need to feel disciplined to behave disciplined. You act first. Feelings follow behavior far more often than behavior follows feelings. Most people wait to feel ready. High-standard individuals act, and readiness develops along the way. Now let's talk about something uncomfortable. Raising your standards will make some people uncomfortable. When you stop tolerating gossip, lazy thinking, constant complaining, you may outgrow certain environments. When you stop accepting disrespect, some relationships may fade. When you stop settling for average work, some colleagues may call you too serious. That discomfort is not loss. It is alignment. Your environment reflects your standards. If you accept less, you surround yourself with less. If you demand more from yourself, you naturally gravitate toward those who do the same. This is why elite environments feel different. It is not magic. It is shared standards. Take Serena Williams. Her dominance in tennis came from relentless training standards and mental resilience. She didn't depend on crowd energy to perform. She carried an internal expectation of excellence. When your expectation of yourself is high, external pressure loses power. And here's something practical. Standards must be specific. Saying, I want to be better, is vague. Saying, I read 20 pages daily, is a standard. Saying, I work on my business 90 minutes before checking social media, is a standard. Saying, I never miss 2 workouts in a row, is a standard. Clarity removes excuses. You don't need 20 standards at once. Start with one area. Health, work, learning, discipline, pick one. Raise the minimum acceptable behavior slightly above your current comfort. Lock it in. Protect it daily. Consistency builds self-trust. Self-trust builds confidence. Confidence builds courage. Courage builds bigger action. And suddenly, your life begins expanding. Let's go deeper emotionally. Many people struggle not because they lack ability, but because they tolerate a version of themselves that is smaller than their potential. They say they want growth, but they protect comfort. They say they want success, but they protect habits that prevent it. There comes a moment in life where you feel tired of your own excuses, tired of restarting, tired of knowing you are capable of more. That moment is not a call for motivation. It is a call for new standards. A quiet internal decision. No more. No more skipping important work. No more accepting disrespect. No more breaking promises to myself. That quiet decision, repeated daily, changes trajectory. You don't need to announce it online. You don't need validation. The power of standards is silent. Invisible at first, but unstoppable over time. Picture two versions of yourself 1 year from now. One relied on motivation, started and stopped, felt inspired occasionally, made progress in bursts, frustrated by inconsistency. The other relied on standards, small daily actions, no drama, no emotional speeches, just quiet execution. The difference after 365 days would be dramatic. And here's the final layer. Standards are self-respect in action. When you raise your standards, you send a message to yourself. I believe I am worth discipline. I believe my future deserves protection. I believe my potential deserves structure. That belief changes posture, tone, energy. You walk differently when you know you keep your word. You speak differently when you know you don't tolerate less. You think differently when average is no longer an option. So stop chasing motivation videos every week, hoping to feel something powerful. Instead, sit alone and define your non-negotiables. What time do you wake up? How many hours do you focus? What behaviors are unacceptable? What level of effort is the minimum? Write them down. Commit. Follow through, especially when you don't feel like it. Because the days you least feel like showing up are the days your identity is being built the strongest. Motivation will visit occasionally. Standards will stay permanently. And the day your standards become stronger than your excuses is the day your life begins to transform in ways that no temporary inspiration ever could. If you want. So here is what I want you to understand before this ends. Your life is not waiting for more motivation. It is waiting for a decision. A decision about what you will no longer tolerate from yourself. A decision about the standard you are willing to live by when no one is watching, when no one is clapping, when no one even knows you are trying. Because that is where real transformation happens in private, not in hype, not in noise, not in emotional highs, but in quiet, repeated actions that align with a higher version of you. You are not stuck because you are incapable. You are stuck because you have been negotiating with your potential. And today, that negotiation can end. Right now, you can decide that average effort is beneath you, that broken promises to yourself are unacceptable, that your dreams deserve structure, not just desire. Raise your standard for how you think. Raise your standard for how you speak about yourself. Raise your standard for how you use your time. Even if no one else sees it immediately, you will feel it. You will feel the shift in your posture, in your confidence, in your clarity. And once that internal shift happens, external results will follow. Not overnight, not magically, but inevitably. Because a person who honors their standards daily becomes unstoppable over time. The world respects those who respect themselves. Opportunities trust those who are consistent. Success finds those who are prepared. So stop waiting to feel ready. Stop waiting to feel fearless. Act with a higher standard, and courage will catch up. Discipline will strengthen. Momentum will build. One day you will wake up and realize that the life you once imagined is slowly becoming your reality, not because you were constantly motivated, but because you were constantly committed. This is your moment to draw a line, to say, from this point forward, I live differently. Not louder, not showier, just stronger. Let this be the day you stop chasing inspiration and start building identity. Let this be the day you choose growth over comfort, structure over excuses, standards over moods. Your future self is watching your decisions today. Make them proud.